Cults are everywhere. They don't just live in the walls of NXIVM and Scientology.
There are sex cults,
Self-help cults,
workout cults,
political cults,
even legging cults.
And on the podcast, Was I in a Cult?, we focus on the brave individuals who have lived through them.
I'm Liz Iacuzzi.
And I'm Tyler Measom.
Your hosts of Was I in a Cult?
Join us each week as we take you through a heroic roller coaster of someone's journey in and out of a cult.
With a little levity thrown in because humor is healing and cults are funny.
Listen to and follow Was I in a Cult at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Which for Tyler is at Rite Aid.
On tape.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 369 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you?
I am doing great. Got a new puppy.
Yeah.
Little Maltese named Ivy that I showed off on the Patreon video.
Very cute.
Yeah, she's a cutie. We already had one Maltese, and, we lost our lab last year. And we've just been thinking that we need another dog.
I just really kind of thought you were going to name her Gibby, but,
Yeah, I floated the idea if it was a boy. And no, my wife shot that down very, very quickly.
Like, did you even get it out all the way? She's like,
I got like, yeah. And she was like, nope.
Not happening.
Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Hayden Bushnell.
Hey, Bushnell. Hey, I see you. Get it?
I do. Yeah. From the famous Bushnell binocular optic family.
Yes.
Mountain.
What's going on, Mountain?
James Edinger.
Hey, Edinger.
Ruby Perez.
What's up, Ruby?
Miguel Salas.
Salas.
Dana Allison.
Well, thanks, Allison.
Jesse Donovan.
Well, look at that. Donovan.
KMCC.
I wonder what that stands for, but I just can't put my finger on it.
Or think of the word finger.
Yes.
We had Melissa Mitchell.
What up, MM?
And last but not least, Sarah Thrasher.
Hey, thanks, Sarah.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Amy.
Good old Amy.
Yeah, so we appreciate the new support, the continued support. We also had a great PayPal donation from Elizabeth Horn.
Hey, thanks, Horn.
Yeah, thank you to everyone. So, Gibbs, right now on True Crime All the Time, we have our second and last part on Jodi Arias, and we really do a deep dive into the trial and also the penalty phase of the trial as well, and then kind of talk about, her making headlines over the years and all of that. So it's out now. Make sure you check it out. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We are talking about James Barrier, better known as Buffalo Jim. He was a celebrity in Las Vegas. Jim was liked and respected by the majority of people in the city, but he made some powerful enemies when he refused to relocate his business to allow for the expansion of a local strip club, which had alleged ties to the mafia. Jim was involved in a years-long feud with the owner, who was jailed for tax fraud. And then Jim died under mysterious circumstances the day after his enemy was released from house arrest based on the evidence at the scene and the circumstances leading up to his death. His family believes he was murdered.
How strange is that for a strip club to have mafia ties?
Yeah, especially in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's
very strange.
Yeah.
But then, you kind of go through this scenario and you hear that, his family believes he was murdered. I think pretty hard not to when you have this kind of enemy who just happens to be released right before your family member dies under mysterious circumstances.
Definitely going to be thinking about it.
Yeah. James Barrier was born on March 22nd, 1953. He grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. Jim's parents took him to Las Vegas for a vacation when he was 9 years old. He knew he wanted to come back someday. He loved Vegas because of all the lights, shows, and restaurants. And, Vegas is a cool place. But I was wondering, how much can you really do in Vegas as a 9-year-old?
Maybe he was a big kid.
I don't know.
He was a tall 9-year-old.
Maybe he had a fake ID like the one kid in Vegas Vacation.
Yeah.
Jim stopped attending school after the 5th grade and instead learned as much as he could about cars. According to Las Vegas Weekly, he started doing mechanic work at age 13. He and his older brother did oil changes, and Jim often slept at the garages and gas stations where he worked.
That's definitely a way to become a garage monkey, huh?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. Now, we've talked about a lot of people not finishing high school. I don't know how many people we've talked about who dropped out of school after the 5th grade. It's pretty early.
It is early, but clearly he knew what he wanted to do.
Yeah, it was something to do with cars. Jim moved to Las Vegas in 1971. He was determined to stay, but according to him, the city tried to get rid of him. When he was settling into his new life, he received 13 traffic tickets. And by the end of the 70s, he had so many infractions that his lawyer said he should be called Jailhouse Jim.
It's kind of similar to you and all those tickets that you had. Remember, I would sit in your vehicle and we'd have to go somewhere. And that one time I opened up your little, what do you call that thing?
Glove compartment?
Glove compartment. Mm-hmm. And it was just like things sprung out at me.
Just tickets after tickets?
Yeah. And I was like, what the heck? And you're like, hey, put them back. None of your business.
It never got me. Jim started off by doing mechanic work out of his van, but he was able to purchase his own auto repair shop in the late 70s called Allstate Auto and Marine Electric. Las Vegas Weekly told the story of how Jim got his iconic nickname after he arrived in Vegas. Jim started working with D. Egbert, who owned a local car lot. By this point, Jim's hair was long and thick and made him stand out in a crowd. And Gibbs, I'm always jealous of people with long locks.
It's something both you and I
do not have. One day in 1975, Jim and Dee went to a casino and were stopped by a drunk tourist from Texas who said to both men, "One time when I was a young man, I got drunk and I had sexual relations with a buffalo."
Okay.
First of all, that is never something you should attempt or want to even think about. But second of all, why would you tell this to two complete strangers?
Why would you even say it out loud at all?
To anybody. He then looked at Jim and said, "You just might be my son." And I guess from then on, Jim was known as Buffalo Jim. Now, a lot of people have nicknames. And you always wonder, okay, where do they get them? Some of them are easy, right? There's a big guy named Tiny or, whatever. Buffalo Jim, if you gave somebody 100 guesses, they would never come close to guessing how he got that nickname.
Never.
Jim owned his mechanic shop for 31 years. His shop was known for being able to fix cars, trucks, RVs, and boats no other mechanic could fix. He had celebrity clients like Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, The Undertaker. I know who is one of your favorite or was one of your favorite WWE wrestlers.
Well, yeah, until he cheated.
And many more.
And beat me unfairly. Undertaker.
People out of state came to have Jim fix their vehicle. So his mechanic skills, his outgoing personality, and his unique style made him a local celebrity. And those are some big names. You've got Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson coming to have you work on their car.
It says something.
Jim used to say, "There's only 2 cities in this great country where I can be me." Those cities were Vegas and San Francisco. He planned to move to San Francisco when he was older. Jim liked to party. In the late 70s and early 80s, he went out to bars, used drugs, and met a lot of women.
Well, that's what you kind of did in the 70s and 80s.
I know that's what you did in the 70s in particular. Bars, drugs, women, you and your husky jeans.
They look good on me.
While pursuing dates, he met several influential business owners in Vegas and maintained those connections for the rest of his life. In 1979, he met his partner, Roxanne Pollock. They had 3 daughters together. They never married, but they were together for 22 years.
I think it's the first time I've heard you say the name Roxanne without singing Roxanne.
Roxanne! 22 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah. You would think at a certain point there would be some pressure there to get married. But, there are some folks that are just totally fine. And I think also there are some folks who believe if we do get married, it's not going to be as good.
So let's just leave it where it sits.
Let's just leave it.
Yeah.
Let it lie.
You don't need to put a ring on it.
In total, Jim had 4 daughters: Jessica, Elise, Jerica, and Jennifer.
I wonder if Elise felt special because she didn't get the J.
Well, as a guy who has 2 kids that are both daughters,
Yeah.
4 daughters is a handful. Has to be. Because I can tell you right now, 2 daughters, that's expensive. And we haven't even got to weddings yet. We're still working through college and all of that. Jim continued partying heavily until his daughter Jessica was born in 1982. He decided he needed to change his life to be a good father, and his main priority in life was providing for his family. Jim's daughters loved him very much and have spoken about what a good dad he was. I think there's a lot of guys like this, partying, a little Frank the Tankish.
Oh, yeah.
And I would put myself in this category. For me, not that I ever drank a ton, but I drank but it was like once I had my daughters, there was something that hit me where I felt like I should not be out of control.
Well, your priorities will change.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kids will do that.
It's, it's what additional responsibilities do to you.
Yeah. Now, although Jim did decrease his drug use, he experimented with drugs in the 80s and dabbled in drugs with his friends in the pro wrestling industry until 2000, according to Las Vegas Weekly.
Well, those guys could party because I worked at a hotel when they would come in to back then the old Hare Arena to do the big matches. Later that night, they'd be at the Holiday Inn where I worked, and they'd be down in the restaurant bar till like 4 o'clock in the morning. And they were very open on what they were doing.
Well, they were big guys too. I assume they could put some away.
Yeah.
Some close friends said he would partake in a night of heavy partying all the way up to 2005. So he slowed down, but he didn't stop. When his daughter Jennifer was older, Jim told her he used cocaine in the 80s, a fact that he was not proud of. His daughters told Unsolved Mysteries they never saw him use drugs. Now, let's face it, cocaine in the 80s was pretty ubiquitous.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was like almost like a fashion statement. Like it went with what you wore. People were like it was a designer drug. People were clamoring.
Remember the big movie Less Than Zero came out around that, and then, of course, I mean, how can you not remember Scarface? Was that in the 80s or 90s? I can't remember.
Scarface was in the 80s, but I think it was set in the 70s for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. And we talked about professional wrestling, and that was one of Jim's other interests. In 1996, he started a vocational school for pro wrestlers called the Buffalo Wrestling Federation. He taught people how to wrestle and how to create a persona to appeal to audiences. Jim also put on a live show that appeared on late night cable TV called Buffalo Jim's Wrestling Show.
Well,
This guy was into a lot of stuff.
He was. But, you know how that wrestling goes. It's all about your persona.
Yes. I mean, there are people who are really good wrestlers.
Yeah.
But they don't have the charisma. And so they don't take off. Now, if you got both, there's a good chance you're going to take off.
Yeah, you're going to climb the ladder as long as you play the game right.
And I did watch a show on wrestling. I can't remember what it was called, but it kind of went through the background of some of these now famous wrestlers. They start out in these underground shows, then they get into some type of school, and then the next thing you know, they get called up to the big leagues.
Yeah,
as you would call it.
Yeah.
Jim's hard work paid off. He grew his wealth, and in 1998, he purchased his dream home on Sunrise Mountain. Jim's fame increased, and he became a beloved figure in Las Vegas. One way he gave back to his community was by doing reading tours in local elementary schools.
I thought about doing that, but you have discouraged me from doing it.
Yeah, it's not something that I think you should undertake. Let's just say that.
Yeah. You said draw some picture books.
If you want to teach a kindergarten art class or something, little macaroni gluing, I'm fine with that. The Las Vegas Review-Journal voted Jim the city's most colorful character in 2005.
That's saying a lot for Las Vegas.
It is, because there's a lot of colorful characters. You think about cities like San Francisco, New Orleans, Las Vegas,
New York.
A lot of people go there because they will fit in. I remember, walking down Bourbon Street, just seeing some of the strangest people I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
I probably talked about it before. There was one guy in a Darth Vader costume who just stood and flipped people off. And people would give him money for being flipped off by Darth Vader. I mean, if that's your thing, that's a great place for you.
Absolutely.
In the late 90s and early 2000s, while Jim was at the height of his fame, he was involved in a feud with another local business that caused his family to split, ended his wrestling federation, and almost caused him to lose his business. So next door to his wrestling school and his auto and marine shop was this strip club called the Crazy Horse 2, TOO, not TWO, which opened in 1984. The club was owned by Rick Rizzolo, who reportedly has ties to mafia figures, something that a lot of people allege about you.
I can neither confirm nor deny.
As your counsel, I would say that's a good tactic. Now, why you've made me your counsel, I don't know. I don't have a law degree, so that seems
You printed that thing off the internet.
like a bad decision on your part.
I thought it was real.
The Crazy Horse was one of the most successful clubs in the city. According to Unsolved Mysteries, there were rumors the mob was involved in the club. As the years passed, the club developed a reputation for violence, and there was talk that bouncers were beating up patrons.
That's not going to help your business.
Well, I saw that movie Roadhouse. I thought that's what a bouncer's job was to beat up patrons.
What's that saying in the Roadhouse? Be nice until
it's time to not be nice.
Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming that most bouncers need a reason, to throw a patron out. It sounds to me like here in this situation, they were just beating people up. I don't know. And maybe the thing is, a bouncer is not supposed to beat people up. They're supposed to de-escalate and get the person out without having to beat them up.
Yeah, I always thought the job was to protect the other patrons and the property from damage so everybody else can still enjoy the festivities.
Jim tried to stay out of it, and he occasionally went to the club after work. So this feud between Jim and Rick started around 1998 when Jim wouldn't give up his space so that the club could expand. Jim invited Rick and his chief associate, who was allegedly a mob member, to his office for a drink so they could work out a deal. Rizzolo declined his terms, walked out, and started an intimidation campaign to get Jim to move. Okay, if this is how it went down, this is a tough spot for Jim. He's got, two businesses. He's just going to, give up one of them or part of one of them so this club can expand, or both of them?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to want to be compensated, right? If you're going to do something like this, it's got to be fair.
And apparently he didn't think it was, right? He refused whatever offer that they made to him, saying it wasn't high enough. Jim's attorney, Gus Flangus, told Las Vegas Weekly, but the most outstanding thing about Buffalo was that he hated corruption, and he was passionate in that hate. And he had not only hated it, he fought it. We all know he did. Okay, I mentioned being in a tough spot. I get it. You don't want to do what they want you to do. But if this is really the mob, you might be putting yourself in a little bit of jeopardy there.
Yeah. Yeah. Because they're going to try to make you do what they want you to do.
Well, and let's face it, the mob has always been willing to go to lengths that legitimate business people won't go to. Customers' cars were destroyed or towed away. Jim's shop was broken into and set on fire. Sometimes drunk or injured customers from the club were found lying in front of the shop. Used condoms were left in plain sight. And Jim's daughter once came upon used needles. Jim also felt like he was being harassed by police and fire code inspectors. Okay, is it possible that, if it's the mob, they got some of these people in their pocket?
Absolutely.
It's happened.
Yeah.
But what all of this did was it caused Jim to lose business. I mean, I get it. You're a great mechanic, but I really don't want to pull up and see a bunch of used condoms and needles and...
Yeah, worry that my car is going to be stolen while it's at your facility.
Or set on fire.
Yeah.
In addition to all this, Jim received threatening letters and phone calls. According to Unsolved Mysteries, a man screamed on the other end of the line, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you." I could see how somebody would take that as a little threatening.
Yeah, it's not going to sit well.
Jim went on the local news to complain publicly about the Crazy Horse 2, saying that they put in fake fire lanes and used city parking enforcement to ticket his customers. Behind the scenes, Jim started speaking to journalists and giving them information about the club. He also gave federal investigators photos, the names of witnesses, and other information.
Well, there's two ways to play the game. The strip club's going to do it their way, and now Jim's going to do it his way.
But as we said, right, if the mob is really involved, going to federal investigators is not going to ingratiate you with them.
No.
If anything, it's going to put a big old target on your back. Jim always said he wasn't worried, but he knew he had to be careful and watch his back. He said, "I will not back down and let anyone take anything from me." In July 2000, Jim filed a lawsuit against Rick Rizzolo, alleging that he and his company were promoting prostitution, pandering, drug sales, and arranging to bribe public officials. He's really not backing down.
No.
And he's going on the offensive.
Well, those are some pretty big claims.
According to Jim's attorney, he'd suffered hundreds of thousands in damages, loss of business, and emotional distress. He sued the Crazy Horse for $1 million. Jim hired a PI to prepare for the lawsuit and claimed he had proof to back up his allegations. Rizzolo's attorney threatened to sue Jim for libel. Rizzolo and the attorney for Shift Properties, Jim's landlord, said the suit was a preemptive strike before an evidentiary hearing in their landlord-tenant dispute. Shift Properties accused Jim of failing to properly care for his space, which is tough to do if you have somebody setting things on fire.
Yeah, if you have the person wanting your space setting you up, and also sounds like maybe in cahoots with the landlord.
It does sound like that. During the lawsuit, news came out that the FBI began looking into the Crazy Horse 2 back in 1995. Robert Clymer, a former FBI agent, told Unsolved Mysteries that in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, the mafia ran strip clubs around town. Strip clubs are primarily a cash business, which makes it easier to commit fraud. There is a lot of cash, allegedly, flying around in a strip club. Okay. I've never been personally, but I hear.
I've heard that too, and I've never been.
But you see on TV, nail salons, laundromats, these at certain times have been pretty popular as kind of businesses to buy in order to launder money. I think you'd have to throw strip clubs in there as well.
Oh, yeah. I think it'd be an easy place to launder some money.
Clymer told Unsolved Mysteries one of the places in Las Vegas where you could find representation of every single mafia family in the United States was in the Crazy Horse 2. Okay, that's really scary. I mean, you're talking about mafia from all over, New York, Chicago. People at the club were involved in tax evasion, extortion, and other illegal activities. During the investigation, Rizzolo admitted to hiring people with criminal backgrounds, but denied committing any crimes. And we mentioned it, right? Jim was supplying the FBI with information about activities at this place. According to former agent Robert Clymer, he sent them boxes of evidence on a weekly basis for about 2 years. And his information was helpful to their investigation. In 2000, Jim's partner Roxanne took the girls to Seattle, Washington, because of this feud with Rizzolo. However, she allowed Jim's daughter, Jerica, to move back in with him in January 2001. They were extremely close and lived together for 6 years. On February 20th, 2003, the FBI executed a search warrant on the Crazy Horse 2. 16 employees were indicted for various crimes.
It's a big hit.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many people are employed at a normal strip club, but for 16 of them to be indicted seems like a lot.
Again, I wouldn't know because I've never been.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you never worked there because you have worked at one.
Well, that's different than going as a patron.
Right. Okay. I'm just clarifying that, Rex.
West.
In 2006, Rick Rizzolo pleaded guilty to income tax evasion. In early 2007, he was sentenced to a year and 1 day in prison. Not a year and 1 day.
You, sir, are being sentenced to 1 year and a day.
The Crazy Horse 2 closed in September 2006 after its liquor license was revoked. By August 2019, the building was condemned because of damages. Now, Rick Rizzolo was in prison, but apparently this feud continued on. Jim was granted a restraining order against Bart Rizzolo, Rick's father, in November 2007 after he claimed Bart tried to run him over in their shared parking lot. He talked about watching his back. I mean, you'd have to have your head on a swivel at all times.
Yeah. I mean, it's your own shared parking lot and you got to worry about being ran over.
Las Vegas Weekly reported on the club in 2007. A journalist interviewed a cocktail waitress who said Bart and Rick were obsessed with Buffalo. Every single morning, Bart talked about him. I think in all the time I worked there were maybe 5 mornings Bart wasn't talking about how to get rid of Buffalo. This guy was really like a thorn in their side.
Sure, yeah. Definitely obsessed, though.
Rick Rizzolo only served 10 months in prison. He was released in March 2008 and was put on house arrest. His house arrest ended on April 4th, 2008. Jim Barrier died on April 5th. And I think when you look at it, on the surface, that's either the biggest coincidence or bad luck for this Rizzolo guy, or he had something to do with it.
Seems a little strange for sure.
According to Jim's daughter, Jerica, earlier that day, her father's motorcycle was repaired by his chief mechanic at the shop. Jim wasn't happy because he hadn't been able to use it for more than a year, and he took it out for a ride. Jim had a lot to look forward to at the time. He was going to sign a contract for an NBC reality series about his life, and his auto repair shop was doing better than it ever had before. He had plans to move to a new location. So, I think just looking at some of those things is important because this is a guy that's got a lot going for him.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a person down on his luck that is maybe thinking about ending his life.
No, sounds like things are going in a great direction.
Maybe as well as they ever have. At 2:12 p.m., Jim called Joshua Longobardi from Las Vegas Weekly to tell him about the latest threatening letter he'd received. This letter was concerning because it contained detailed information that was accurate, including his home address. Jim called at least 2 other local journalists that day. The newest letter read, per Las Vegas Weekly, Mr. Barrier, meetings have been taking place at various locations around town by Rick Rizzolo. Rick was one of the persons driving around your property last week. Be careful, he's up to no good. He's using people to get close to you. He's discussed using a female to get access to your business. Jim had received a similar letter on February 1st. It said, Bart Rizzolo has been overheard telling some of his close contacts that there will be violent attacks against you. He's let it be known that you will suffer in the near future. I mean, at a certain point, Gibbs, you got to start getting a little worried, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, if this person's going around talking about you as if some really bad things are going to happen to you, you have to take it serious.
I get it. He's been fighting these people for many years.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's winning or has pretty much won.
Well, and if they feel like the reason Rick's in prison is because of Jim.
Which they probably did.
Yeah, because he did help put him in prison. So now they're probably looking at a way to retaliate.
Is that similar to retaliate?
Yes, retaliation.
Retaliation. Jim's daughter, Jennifer, spoke to him on Thursday, April 3rd. Jim mentioned that Rick was out of prison and said if the Crazy Horse 2 people were to get him, they would make it look like I died of a drug overdose with women. So I think at the very least, this was on his mind. He had been thinking about it to the point where, he tells his daughter, hey, if something happens to me, this is probably how they'll make it look.
So it sounds like he has some concerns.
Yes. Joshua Longobardi also wrote that Jim contacted him on April 4th. Earlier that day, Jim received a phone call from an alleged hitman. Longobardi told him to be aware of potential ambushes. Jim told the journalist the same thing he told his daughter. They're going to try to do it through a woman, or they're going to try to drug me. They agreed Jim should be careful who he socialized with that weekend or watched what he ate or drank. I think I'd be locked in a room so nobody could get to me. Like a panic room or something.
Oh, so you're kind of locked in your room anyway.
Well, at the very least, I wouldn't be going out to the bars probably. I wouldn't be trying to meet new people.
Yeah.
The only people I'd have around me is people I had known for a very long time. But Jim left home around 7:15 p.m. on the night of April 5th, 2008. Jerica didn't want him to go, but Jim told her if he wasn't back by 12:30, he would give her $50. She asked for $100 and they shook on it. He left with a large amount of cash in his pocket, as was his habit, and drove his 1979 Rolls Royce. So he might have had some concern, but it wasn't to the level where he was going to change his lifestyle. He was still going out.
He wasn't going to stay locked up.
Jerica texted her dad around 9:30 and didn't receive a response. She called him at 9:41 and 9:50 p.m. According to Las Vegas Weekly, Jim did not reply. He asked her sister Elise to pick her up. Jerica called him again on the morning of April 6th and sent a text around 12 p.m. Around 2:30 p.m., she received a call from a police officer. The officer said she had to speak to an adult. Jerica was just 15, so she passed the phone to Elise, who was 20. The officer informed her that her father was dead, and they needed to come to Motel 6 on Boulder Highway to identify the body.
Such a strange thing to do, come to the actual motel. Why not come downtown to the coroner's office or something?
That's what I was thinking as well. Don't you normally go to like the coroner's office? What are they you're just going to walk into the motel room and look at this person's body there?
Say yay or nay.
At 11:30 a.m., a housekeeper knocked on the door of room 105 to see if she could start cleaning. She opened the door and saw a man asleep on the bed. She returned at 12:30 and saw the man still in bed. She returned again at 1:10 p.m. and found him in the same position. Another housekeeper shook the man to see if he would wake up, and they realized he was dead. So first of all, this woman really needed to get into that room to clean it.
She's like, hey, sir, you didn't pay for the extended stay.
Because she was coming back like every hour.
Yeah.
But as we often talk about, what's this going to be like? I mean, you're just doing your daily routine. Now, this might happen a little more often to house cleaners or, people who work at hotels than maybe some other occupations where, you knock on the door, you go in, and there's somebody dead. The man was soon identified as James Barrier. Jim was found lying face up with a pillow behind his head. his shirt open, and his pants down around his ankle. A white powdery substance was found on his beard and shirt. And when I saw this, Gibbs, it really made me question, this hotel maid. Because it was saying, it had said that she kind of looked in on him, 2 or 3 times and thought he was sleeping. And this picture that's being painted doesn't really scream out, hey, I'm sleeping.
Right. Sounds like something else.
Yeah. Pants around the ankles, shirt open. Now, I know that's just a Tuesday for you, but for most people, that's not
normal
sleepy time.
No, but it is Vegas, so
That's true. And it is Motel 6. His cause of death was not immediately obvious. When Elise and Jerica arrived at the Motel 6, they didn't see their dad's Rolls Royce in the parking lot. They hoped the police had the wrong man. But when they entered the room and saw the body, they knew immediately he was their father. They claimed they were not given information or details about how he was found, but they were given his belongings that were found in the room with the body. According to Jerica, the police gave her an empty prescription pill bottle. It was found in Jim's pocket, and there were originally 3 pills inside. Jerica asked if the pills were green and was told that they were. She said it was her dad's Valium. However, the label on the bottle was for Norvasc, a prescription heart medication. The prescription expired in 2003. The girls were given an envelope that contained Jim's car keys, cell phone, garage door opener, wallet, and his motel receipt.
Because you got to have the receipt for the hotel room. It's important.
Well, the one thing that really stood out to me was the garage door opener. Who in the world takes their garage door opener inside a hotel room with them? I mean, most of us never take it off the visor.
I have mine clipped on my belt right now.
I know, and I always thought that was strange. Jim's ID was missing, and his wallet only contained a folded dollar bill.
Maybe that was his lucky dollar bill.
Could have been. But it was said that Jim never folded the money in his wallet. And he was known for always carrying large amounts of cash. Jerica said her dad left the house with cash, but it appeared to be missing.
That makes you wonder.
It makes me wonder why somebody would leave the $1.
Yeah.
If you're going to take it, you just take it all.
Or is it some type of sign?
That's a great question. And according to Unsolved Mysteries, a $1 bill is a sign of a mob hit. I did not know that. Wonder why a $1 bill, not a $2 bill, not a 50, not 100.
They're not go crazy and give away money.
Yeah, but a $1 bill is so common. Seems like a strange sign.
What's that old mob hit thing they used to do? The black
hand?
Black hand. I wonder if it's tied to black hand stuff.
I don't think they gave you $1. I thought they gave you an envelope with a black hand on a card or something.
Maybe they got tired of doing the black hand. So let's take it to a different level. Something more simple. Anybody got a $1 bill on them?
Jerica thought the fact that Valium was found in the room was strange. Jim normally took half a pill to sleep at night, and he had a new, almost full bottle at the time of his death. Jerica normally prepared his medication every night. She knew her dad didn't plan on sleeping at the motel. The girls noticed other details they thought were strange. There were 2 cups of water on the nightstand, but Jim hated tap water. The room was clean, but Jim was a messy person and shed hair everywhere he went, which I thought was a strange statement. Makes him sound like he was a lab or something. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if his hair was falling out or he had a lot of body hair. I don't know.
Again, it's something you don't know because we don't have thick, long hair.
And this garage door opener that was found in his room, which I thought was strange, they said, he had never taken it off his sun visor before. And that was my thought as well. People rarely take it off once it's on there. Additionally, Jim's daughter, Jennifer, noted that 2 phones were listed on the police report, which were not Jim's phone. The girls never received a silver phone described in the report. They did not know of Jim having a second phone, and they wondered whose it was. And we have to talk about these 2 daughters. I mean, how terrible to have to, drive to a Motel 6 to identify your father's body. Now, did they leave him in the exact state he was in? Because that's going to, make matters even worse. You walk in, your dad's laying there, shirt open, pants down around his ankles.
Hopefully they put a sheet over top of him.
I would hope so. But either way, it's going to be a very traumatic experience. But it sounds like they then go into almost like detective mode, right? Because they are pointing out a lot of things that are strange.
Well, and they also had that conversation, well, the one daughter did, prior to her dad going out.
Mm-hmm. Which included two facets, right? One was about drugs,
Yep.
and the other was about possibly a woman.
Yeah.
So if you're found with your pants down around your ankles, it does denote that, some type of rumpus room activity was possibly going on. And then obviously, this prescription pill bottle plays into it as well.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're at a Motel 6.
Well, but they always leave the light on for you.
They do, unless you're renting it by the hour, and then they don't turn it on. The police asked the girls about their father's missing car. Jerica and her sister drove around the building looking for it. They knew they wouldn't miss a Rolls Royce if it was in the parking lot, but they didn't see it. So the police filed a missing car report. And that is true. If you're looking for a 1995 Toyota Celica, right, you might miss that. You are not going to miss a Rolls Royce.
No, I don't think so. And I don't understand why the police aren't assisting them in trying to locate this car.
It did seem strange that they were kind of Nancy Drewing it like on their own. I'm going to use that as a verb. The police released room 105 back to management later that day.
Didn't waste any time.
No, I'm assuming they did everything they needed to do. But one thing that did kind of go through my mind was, they were giving the girls a lot of items. Were any of those not potential evidence?
Well, maybe they thought there was no
evidentiary value?
Maybe it appeared to them that there was no foul play involved.
Yeah, it's possible, but I always worry when you're making that determination so early on. We've seen in how many cases police think it was a suicide, or they think this or they think that, so they don't collect certain pieces of evidence. And, once they give it back to the girls, then, obviously you're going to lose the ability to do certain things.
Right.
At 5:30 p.m., the Rolls Royce was found behind the office in the parking lot of the Motel 6. The police searched the car and did not find prints or hair.
That's strange, though, if the girls looked for it and couldn't find it, but then they finally find it, the police do,
at 5:30. A family friend retrieved the car from the parking lot and took photos of it. It was very clean, and whoever returned the vehicle parked it in a spot visible from the street. So it almost makes it sound as though it probably wasn't there, right, when the girls drove around looking for it. And then at some point later, after it was cleaned and all of that, somebody dropped it back off. But that would be very risky.
It would be, unless you had some inside knowledge.
Jerica decided to look through Jim's call log to see who he last spoke to. He had a message on his voicemail. The message was left by a woman who said, "Hey, Buffalo, this is Lisa. Is everything okay?" Jim talked on the phone with Lisa at 7:40 p.m. Their conversation lasted 7 minutes and 47 seconds. Her number was not saved in his phone. Lisa left messages at 7:30 and 9 p.m. She asked him to call her back, then asked if he was all right. Jerica decided to call Lisa because she sounded concerned in her voicemail. A woman answered. Jerica asked, "Are you Lisa?" The woman didn't reply. Jerica said, "Do you know Buffalo Jim?" The woman responded, "I don't know Buffalo Jim," and hung up. Okay, two things for me. Again, Jerica's 15 years old, doing a damn good job at playing amateur detective.
Yeah.
Here. But also, then I think number two, how are you going to leave voicemails and then when confronted say, you don't know who Buffalo Jim is, and then you don't even answer the question of whether or not you're Lisa?
And for me, why aren't the police doing some of this work?
Well, I think it's a good question, right? Because they don't have the cell phones anymore, or cell phone. They handed it to the girls along with some other things. So what type of investigation are they really doing? And maybe some of that does go back to the fact that they determined early on that there was no investigation needed, possibly incorrectly.
Yeah, maybe they were told, hey, don't look into this.
Investigators checked security footage and saw that Jim walked into the lobby of the Motel 6 at 8:22 p.m. to check in. However, keycard data indicated that Jim's room was accessed via keycard 7 minutes earlier. The keycard report identified which type of key was being used in each room. It was a guest key that accessed the room.
So somebody went to the room, did something, or was in the room when Jim entered the room.
And then I think you have to ask how'd they get this guest key when he hadn't even checked in yet.
Yeah, but if they knew he was going there, maybe somebody set something up, Lisa or whatever her name was, to meet him there. And then she let Rick or Bart know that the meetup was set. Maybe they got somebody into that room. Or her.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going with it. But wouldn't that mean that whoever was working the desk that night would have had to have been in on it too?
Is it that hard to pay somebody at a Motel 6? Here's a couple hundred.
No.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Give me a guest key for room, whatever. And then make sure when this guy comes in, you put him in that room.
Yeah.
But that would have to have happened.
Yeah.
In that scenario. Jim's daughters believe someone was already in the room waiting for him when he arrived. And that seems like a very valid theory based on what we just talked about. If a guest key card accessed his room, 6-7 minutes before he even checked in, then I could say there was probably somebody in there waiting for him.
Yeah.
Additionally, per Unsolved Mysteries, a short female silhouette was captured following Jim outside. This was picked up on camera because of the large windows in the lobby. On April 7, 2005, an officer told the public that the Vegas Metro Police found no evidence of foul play, so homicide detectives were not called to the scene. A coroner's investigator came to the scene and found nothing suspicious and wrote that the death was a possible overdose. So I do think that helps explain, some of the questions that we pose. Why did they just give all of this stuff back to Jim's daughters? Well, first of all, homicide detectives weren't even out there.
Right.
Because the police just thought, there's no evidence of foul play.
Looks like he took too many drugs.
Yep.
Sorry about your loss. Here's his personal items.
The report stated that Jim was once addicted to cocaine. However, no illegal drugs were found at the scene. The report did make note of the 3 Valium pills found in the pill bottle. The room was photographed, but the police didn't get fingerprints or interview family and friends. And like we often talk about, if you don't do that stuff up front right away, seal off the scene, make sure nobody's traipsing in and out that shouldn't be, dusting for fingerprints, bagging up evidence, all of that stuff. You can't go back and redo it.
No.
You get one opportunity, and once it's gone, it's gone. The initial conclusion was that Jim died of natural causes. The Metro Police said there would be no formal investigation unless the autopsy found something unusual. The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported that the clerk who was on duty when Jim checked in said his Rolls Royce was parked around the side of the building. The motel clerk also confirmed Jim rented a room for 2. The hotel security guard reported nothing unusual that night. The Review-Journal noted that there is no surveillance footage of the parking lot. And to me, that's huge. When you think about somebody potentially driving off in Jim's Rolls Royce, getting it cleaned, and then, parking it back in the location where they did, well, without surveillance footage, how would you ever know who that was? Jim's autopsy was conducted on April 7th, 2008, by Dr. Larry Sims, Jim had no significant external trauma. He was not shot, stabbed, beaten, or strangled. He had an unknown white powdery substance on his nose and beard. Dr. Sims ran a standard drug test and tested for several other drugs. Jim tested positive for cocaine. According to Dr. Sims, the minimum lethal level of cocaine is 100 to 200 nanograms per milliliter. Jim's blood had around 250 nanograms per milliliter.
Well, remember, Jim said to his daughter, if they're going to take me out, there's going to be a woman and drugs involved.
When it sounds like there was both. Now, I think we said by this point in his life, it was not thought that he was using cocaine, but he had used cocaine off and on for many, many years, sure. I think.
Yeah, back in the 70s and 80s.
That leads me to believe that, this was a guy who knew how much cocaine you could use at one time.
Sure, yeah.
And how much was enough to kill you. Unlike somebody who had never taken cocaine in their life, they'd have no idea other than what you see in movies, making up a little line and snorting it through a bill. That's the only thing I know about cocaine is what I've seen from movies.
You always like to use a credit card.
Or one of those straight razor razors,
yeah.
Or the safety razor inserts.
Yeah.
You see that a lot too.
Yeah, you do. That's true.
But to me, his knowledge of the drug and his usage of the drug in the past kind of goes against this thought that he would overdose. And I think we said he used it in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, all the way up into somewhere in the 2000s. Yeah. He was no novice to cocaine.
No, but you could also make the case that because he used it so often, maybe he felt like he needed more, or that
maybe he had built up a tolerance,
yeah,
and that tolerance was gone by this time.
Or that he was just overconfident with it.
Maybe.
Thought he could handle more.
I'm leaning towards my theory. Dr. Sims estimated the time of death between 7 and 9 p.m. on April 5th, 2008. Jim's friend Lisa was interviewed on April 15th. Lisa claimed that she and Jim had a long relationship, and she was with him on the night he died. She called him and told him a male friend of hers wanted to discuss selling a motorcycle to Jim. She and Jim agreed to meet at the Chevron gas station on Charleston Boulevard and then drove to the Motel 6 on Boulder Highway in Jim's Rolls Royce, which he parked around back. Lisa said that once they got inside the room, they played what she called a sexual fantasy game.
Okay.
That phrase leaves a lot to interpretation.
It really does.
I mean, you can go through a lot of different things in your mind as to what that might have been.
And I know, you saying that means a lot because you have written a book or two on that subject. So,
I mean, we're not talking about chips, dips, chains, whips, candle wax on the nipples or anything like that. But
again, that's all in your book.
We don't know exactly what this was. Lisa said that Jim used a lot of cocaine that night and was acting paranoid. She told him to drink some water. Jim laid on the bed and started convulsing. He clutched his chest with both hands. Lisa left him in the motel room and took a taxi back to the Chevron gas station to get her car. She left Jim a message at 9:30, asking if he was okay. He never responded.
Well, you know what? When he started to convulse, maybe instead of leaving the room, you pick up the phone and call 911.
But doesn't that seem very strange that she uses the word convulsing and then she just leaves him? And then just texts later and says, hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
I know you were convulsing.
And putting both your hands on your chest like something was wrong.
I wanted to make sure that you're okay.
You also wonder, where did he get the coke? If that was from him or from her or from this third person that they met.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to know what was in the water. Was it water or was it tainted with something?
Laced or whatever. And was the coke laced? Because he might have done what he thought was a normal amount of cocaine.
Right.
But if it was laced with something, then it might have been, much more potent.
Super Coke.
Than he thought it would have been. According to Unsolved Mysteries, Lisa was a stripper and previously worked at the Crazy Horse too.
So she had a connection with Bart or Rick, but did she have that type of connection that she would do something to Jim?
On their behalf?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a question. I also want to know what type of sexual fantasy game involves only pulling your pants down to your ankles. Because I'm still stuck on that as it's seeming very staged, right? Because if you're later going to say we were fooling around or we were whatever, okay, you're going to leave this guy with his shirt open and his pants around his ankles. But most people don't leave their pants around their ankles when they're hot and heavy into a sexual fantasy game. So that seems strange to me.
A little bit.
Additionally, the police did not interview Lisa's friend who wanted to sell the motorcycle to Jim.
So for me, that seems strange too, right? I mean, why not take the questioning, the investigation all the way through on that? I mean, she told you why they met there and what the purpose was and what happened prior to that. Why wouldn't you want to go ahead and just confirm all that?
Yeah, I would say you would, but again, it doesn't sound like this was a full-blown investigation. I'm kind of surprised they even interviewed Lisa.
Yeah, me too. But if you're going to go to that extent, why not go ahead and finish it up?
I'm right with you. Jim's family suspected that Lisa was part of a plan to set Jim up and kill him at the motel. Jim's cause of death was made public on May 27th, 2008. His cause of death was dilated cardiomyopathy, an inflammation of the heart muscle with cocaine intoxication as a contributing condition. And Jim did have a history of health issues. He was diagnosed with diabetes in the 80s, but in recent years, he had stopped eating sugar and increased his exercise. According to Las Vegas Weekly, Jim's physician said he was healthy the week before he died. Additionally, 20 milligrams of GHB were found in Jim's system, but this was not seen as a contributing factor to his death. And I don't know how much 20 milligrams of GHB is. What I do know is that GHB is that one that they commonly refer to as the day rape drug.
And is that something that people would know if they took?
Well, you mentioned the water. And from my understanding, GHB is odorless, it's colorless. I think it would be fairly easy to put even in tap water.
So if he drinks that, he doesn't know, but then all of a sudden,
I think it puts you out.
Yeah.
And then from there, you're still breathing.
Right.
Could you then get somebody to ingest cocaine and as much cocaine as you wanted?
Sure.
I mean, for me, you can see a very plausible scenario where this is exactly how this thing went down.
And I don't know, like you said, I don't know what 20 milligrams mean.
No, I mean, they said it wasn't a contributing factor in his death. So maybe, it's not enough to kill someone, but it is enough to knock someone out.
To allow something else to be the source that kills him.
Yes. I think that's a real possibility. But his death was considered an accident. And I don't know how you get accident unless you're calling the ingestion of too much cocaine an accident, which I guess you'd have to. As mentioned earlier, Jim's associates told Las Vegas Weekly that he continued partying into his early 2000s, but his daughters did not see him use drugs. Jim's attorney, Gus, said it was uncharacteristic of him because Jim had a cocaine problem in his early years, and he was very proud of himself for overcoming it. Now, does that mean he couldn't have slipped up? No, obviously people do. But could it also be, Gibbs, that this was knowledge that other people had as well? He had a cocaine problem at one point. So we'll make it look like he fell off the wagon and he took a bunch of cocaine, he took too much, and he died.
Yeah.
Jerica told Unsolved Mysteries there was no evidence of cocaine use in the motel room, and the doctor who performed the autopsy said no one tested the cocaine found on Jim's body to see what level it was. There was no formal police investigation into the death of Jim Barrier. Jim's lawsuit against Rick Rizzolo failed because he was no longer alive to be a witness against him. So, when we look at motive, there are a couple of different motives here. I think, if you're looking at Rick as a possible suspect, number one, revenge.
Sure.
Probably for what Jim had done and for what Rick most likely perceived as what sent him to prison.
Right.
And then secondly, you have this lawsuit. Well, getting rid of Jim gets rid of the lawsuit.
Yeah. And not only did Rick have a problem with Jim being the main contributor to sending him to prison, but I'm sure all those mob ties had an issue as well, because after Rick went to prison, shortly afterwards, the club closed. All those mob individuals lost income.
Yeah, obviously we're speculating on a lot of things here, but it's kind of hard not to think that, these are real possibilities. Jim's lawyer, Gus Flangus, theorized that people might have forced cocaine on Jim. The medical examiner echoed his suspicion, saying Jim might have been forced to use excessive cocaine or was tricked into taking especially potent cocaine. Okay, so I think two things that we've already talked about. His lawyer thought that. Even the medical examiner said it was a possibility. In late 2022, Jim's daughter, Jennifer, publicly appealed for his case to be reopened. She said, per 8 News Now, I personally think he was poisoned. Jim's former attorney, Gus, sent a letter to the Attorney General and the Clark County DA requesting an investigation. He highlighted inconsistencies in the case and the feud between Jim and Rick Rizzolo. Flangus also pointed out that Jim had GHB in his system, and this was not investigated. To me, that was huge. Now, I did see some stuff online about GHB being used as a recreational drug, apparently. I don't know how, but maybe there was something that it gives you possibly like ecstasy, like euphoria.
Yeah.
But it's also well known that in whatever, I'm sure it's different amounts do different things maybe, but in a certain amount, it will knock you out.
And we will not be experimenting at the next time we record this podcast on myself.
Yeah, I don't know how to get GHB. I'm assuming that would be illegal. So it's not something we should try.
That's good. Makes me a little worried sometimes.
But, as we wrap this one up, there are some unsolved cases that we do where, just at the end of the day, you really have no idea. And it's really hard to even lean in a certain direction.
Yeah.
Because there's very little evidence or whatever. This case for me was very different. Now, I'm not saying I know what happened, but if I had to put money on it, I would lean towards this idea that we've been discussing, because it seems to me as though kind of everything leads in that direction. Doesn't mean it happened that way, but everything that we've talked about and that I've read makes me believe that there's something to it.
Well, Jim told his daughter, if I die, it's going to happen of one of two ways. And how it happened is how he described it to his daughter.
And I wonder why that was. Maybe he had some knowledge of how people within this group, like to do things.
Right.
Or how they took care of their problems. Jim's family still believes he was killed, and that his death was most likely related to his feud with the owners of the Crazy Horse 2. And I don't know how they couldn't believe it. That's the way I'm leaning as well. It's too coincidental to me. The timing of it, one day after Rick gets out, he's on house arrest, right? At the time.
Sure.
So maybe he gets somebody else to do it for him.
Pretty common.
The pants around the ankles, the open shirt, screams to me to be some type of staging. But maybe the biggest thing is this GHB.
Right.
And the fact that they didn't investigate it after learning of that really kind of blows me away. I get it. Local police show up and they say, I don't think we need to call detectives. This really appears to be, an accident or something like that. But once the autopsy is done and the level of cocaine is known and the fact that this GHB was in his system comes out, somebody's got to reevaluate that. Now, like I said, if you didn't do it up front, how much can you do? But you can still interview people and you can do things like that.
And think about Lisa, right? Why did she not be more forward when Jim's daughter called that number and act like, oh, I don't know Buffalo Jim. But when she got interviewed by the police, she all of a sudden, she knew Jim. She was with Jim that night.
Mm-hmm.
But strangely, when he was grasping his heart and convulsing, she decided to just go ahead and leave the room and then make several calls to check in on him. Hey, are you doing okay?
I know I left you in the middle of what appeared to be a massive heart attack.
Yeah.
But
I want to see if you made it through it.
I'm just texting to see if you're still okay.
It's strange.
Again, you can lie to someone's daughter. You can't, or you shouldn't lie to the police. Obviously, that might be the difference there. We haven't had one like this in a while where I've felt so positive that something, more than likely happened a certain way.
Yeah.
Than this one. But that's it for our episode on the death of Buffalo Jim. We got some voicemails. You want to check that out?
Let's hear them.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. This is Bex from Savannah, Georgia. I've called in once before, back in 2020 or 2021, about the pandemic and how you guys helped me get through that. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of update, as you have now helped me through a second major life-changing event. I listened to you guys for about 18 hours straight during the birth of my daughter. My nurses and my husband thought I was absolutely insane listening to True Crime Unsolved and, of course, Patreon. Little shout out there. You guys kept me calm, had me laughing through it, and now we've got another little true crime lover out here. So I just thought I'd keep you guys updated on that. Hope you guys are doing well. As always, Team Mike, and then stay safe. Keep your own 10 ticking, guys. Bye.
Well, that is very cool.
It is awesome.
And I know you heard her say Team Gibby somehow, but
Team Mike, aka Gibby, yes.
Yeah, very cool. Now 18 hours, whew,
It's a long time.
it's a long time.
I love it.
You love the fact that it was a long time?
Well, I'm assuming
That she was in pain for 18 hours?
No.
It's no wonder she's Team Mike. How mean of you.
No, I'm thinking during that time she was listening to T-Cat. I love that she was listening to it.
Yeah, no,
not
it's
that she was in pain.
it just came out that way.
Yeah, it came out
18
well.
hours, awesome. That's great that you had to go through all that pain.
Yeah.
No, that is cool. Anytime that we can help, and especially be a part
Absolutely.
of, help bringing somebody into the world.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't do much, obviously, but
No, we were.
you tried to. I had to keep you out of the room because the parents didn't want you in there. But
I know. I just wanted to see if I can get my name, on the birth certificate somehow, like middle name, or something like that.
Gibby.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Heather up in Vermont, and I just finished your podcast on Susan Howell. And, every episode, Gibby gets obviously upset because you guys talk about upsetting things. But I have listened to probably 500 of your episodes at this time, and you're right. I am, actually so enraged I had to call in and just tell you I was enraged. Most of my friends don't listen to true crime, and they would find it very strange if I called them and explained how enraged I was. Anyway, have a great night, and thanks for everything. Bye.
Yeah, sometimes, I think obviously there is some sort of, even at a small level, a desensitization.
Yeah.
When you do as much research and watch as much true crime. And I'm sure people listen to so much true crime that everybody's going to get desensitized to a certain degree.
Sure.
But some of these cases are so horrible, like that one was, no matter how much true crime you've listened to, you've watched, that's going to be upsetting.
Yeah. It's going to shake you.
Yeah, there's just no way around it. But we appreciate all the voicemails.
We do.
All right, buddy, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
It's summertime, and with Pluto TV's Summer of Cinema, the streaming is easy. Stream hundreds of free movies on all your favorite devices all summer long. Chill out poolside with Mission Impossible and Transformers. Or stay cool inside watching Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Titanic, or The Wolf of Wall Street. No matter your vibe, download the Pluto TV app to spend summer doing what you love. Watching endless movies. Tell me that's not the deal of the summer. Summer of Cinema on Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.